Welcome to today's seminar on the Hockey IntelliGym. My name is Mark Tabram, and I am the Director of USA Hockey's Coaching Education Program. Before you hear from Danny Dankner from Applied Cognitive Engineering, I want to mention a few things on behalf of USA Hockey. We first met up with ACE in 2008 with the goal of developing software to help enhance hockey sense. The program had been previously designed to improve cognitive abilities of fighter pilots and basketball players, and with our assistance, it was adapted to fit the nuances of the game of hockey. In 2009, the IntelliGym was adopted by USA Hockey's National Team Development Program in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Since that time, the U.S. National Under-18 team has appeared in 5 straight IIHF Under-18 gold medal games, winning 4 gold medals. The IntelliGym has also been used by numerous NCAA teams, and most recently, USA Hockey's ADM Model Associations have started using the program for their Pee Wee level players. The question has been asked, why did USA Hockey want to help develop a program like this? Small area games have helped us improve the puck skills and hockey sense of our athletes. However, having an off-ice training tool to further enhance hockey sense gives us yet another avenue to success. But what exactly is hockey sense? To me, it's the ability to make an intelligent play with or without the puck in tight areas or in the open ice. Several factors go into this: seeing the ice, anticipation, spatial awareness, and more. The IntelliGym is an excellent tool for all players 10 and up. We really do not know who the best players are going to be when the kids are at a very young age. That is why we need to develop all of our players with age-appropriate training, which is the backbone of the American development model. Developing hockey sense with tools such as the IntelliGym is an important step for the U.S. player. I want to thank you all for what you do to help our players excel both on and off the ice. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Mark, and welcome everyone this evening. My name is Danny Dankner, and I'm the CEO of Applied Cognitive Engineering, the company behind the research and development of the IntelliGym technology. And as I'm going to tell you later today, the IntelliGym has now reached its 4th generation, and I'll be glad to share with you some information about it and what's the impact it has on performance of hockey players. But first, let's take a quick comment about this webinar. We encourage you to ask questions throughout this presentation, and we have our staff members here with me to accommodate any questions you may have. So we'll do our best to address your questions during the presentation or shortly thereafter. So on the screen, on the right-hand side, you see your questions pane, so you can put your questions and post them in there. And please do so. We have a lot of information to share with you, so we'll be glad to address any questions. Another note, this is not a commercial presentation. It's mostly informative about hockey sense training and also about the IntelliGym training tools. So if you have any other questions, please, I will have my email address at the end of this presentation, so you can send us questions later on, and we'll accommodate them later. So let's move on. First, we'll start with kind of a 30,000 feet view of the building blocks that are needed to hone a successful hockey player. And as you can see here in this illustration, we can point out 4 major domains. First off, each hockey player has to have certain physical traits. You can see that speed, agility, power, and so on and so forth. Then he has to have hockey fundamentals. Okay, he or she needs to know how to skate, how to pass, how to receive passes, and how to shoot. Okay, those are all hockey fundamental skills. Then you have the personality traits, which are also highly important, whether the player is a hard-working player, is he or she motivated, are they hard-working leaders, and so on and so forth. And now the 4th one, which we are concentrating here, the last building block has to do with brain performance. How does the player gather information about a very complex and rapidly changing environment? How does a player make decisions, execute those decisions, and so on and so forth? So this last set of skills is usually called hockey sense. Some people call it game intelligence or game IQ, or simply game smarts, or just decision making. It's all usually refers to the same thing. So along the research, we have asked many coaches, how can they train hockey sense? And in many cases, the answer was that, this is a born gift. It's not really something you can train. It's either a player was born that way, born a smart player, or it was, or was born not that smart player. Now, the scientific advances during the recent years show that this is not necessarily the case. Okay, we now know that brain skills can be trained and improved dramatically. So let's go back to Mark's question. What is hockey sense? And we look at hockey sense as a combination of a long list of on-ice capabilities. Take a look at this list here. As coaches, I'm sure you're familiar with every item on that list, and you can probably add more to that. So when talking about on-ice decision-making, some may refer to decision-making as the choices of actions when you have the puck, whether to pass, to skate with it, or to shoot. But in the world of cognitive engineering, we refer to decision-making in a very in a much wider sense. Okay, so not necessarily decision-making is not necessarily where I possess the puck right now or I'm without it. But just as an obvious example, think of where should I position myself where I am without the puck, or more subtle manner, where should I turn my head to? Where should I gather information in an effective manner? So in many cases, this decision making is not a conscious decision, as we usually call it, but a decision made by our cognitive processes. Okay, in many times when what we call instincts are actually the product of very complex cognitive processes. So after we have this long list of hockey sense skills provided by coaches, and after we go carefully through this list, then we come up with our own list, which is taking these hockey sense skills and translate this list into, if you will, cognitive-ish. Okay, so we have to map those cognitive capacities that underlie the cognitive performance. So again, I'm not going to read this list, but conceptually, if one could effectively train this skill set in the right combination, in the right context, put the right cognitive load on the trainees and make sure it is well adapted to each and every trainee, then that would be ending up with a powerful training tool that can dramatically improve players' performance on the ice. And this is exactly the purpose of this training program. So the bottom line of this introduction, what we're basically saying, in the same manner you're training your physical traits, you can train your muscles, to add muscle mass, and you can train your agility. And in the same way, you know how to train hockey fundamentals, how to pass and shoot and receive passes and so on. In the same manner, there is a gap we now know how to fill, and that is how to train your decision-making skills. And as I said, now we know the answer to that. Okay, we have players seated by their computers for 30 minutes twice a week, doing something that looks like a video game, but then when they go back to the ice sheet, they're simply playing much better. They're doing better decisions, and they're making less mistakes. So what's new in the IntelliGym in this training environment? We know that many coaches and many of you actually who registered for this webinar, they're already familiar with the IntelliGym. So what are the new developments in this front? And we're here to tell you about that. So first of all, it's important to note that a lot has been done during the recent years in the field of neuroscience and in the field of cognitive performance and training. The IntelliGym is just one tool in a growing number of cognitive training programs that were announced in recent years. Many of these programs you've probably heard about are aimed at combat professions. I just mentioned flight to be one of them, elderly population, drivers, children at school. That would be also another famous and well-known field. But in that context, the IntelliGym is designed specifically to boost the performance of competitive players. So the current IntelliGym training tools are actually in the 4th generation of this training technology, and let's take just a quick view of this technology and where it is, how it has been evolved in recent years. So the first generation of brain training in that context was developed in the late 80s, and it was aimed to improve the performance of fighter pilots in the Air Force. By the way, as an ex-Air Force officer, this is where I came across this technology. So as you can see here in this screenshot, the very first version of this program, called a Space Fortress, have been implemented in a way that today would seem very much outdated. However, it is the first time ever that researchers show a significant transfer of skills from computer game environment to actual flight. This study, which was a groundbreaking one, was conducted by Professor Daniel Goffer, who is currently the research supervisor for applied cognitive engineering. And also, it's worth mentioning that earlier this year, Professor Goffer was announced to be the winner of the 2013 annual award of the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society, which is a very prestigious award. So the results that you can see here were peer-reviewed and later adopted by NASA and the U.S. Army Aviation Center. Basically, the main finding was that the researchers found a 30% increase in on-air performance of those pilots who went through this training program compared to their test group. The next generation, the second generation of this cognitive training technology was tested with basketball players. So this product was called the Basketball IntelliGym, and the results were pretty similar to the ones found in the Air Force. We have seen there 20 to 40% improvement in the actual on-court stats of those players who went through this training program, again compared to a control group. And their improvement was found in many different stats that has to do with basketball. We looked at their assists and rebounds and steals and passes and shot selection and so on and so forth. Obviously, we are interested to see how they're actually performing on the floor. So that these are the stats that we're looking at. Many Division I teams adopted this program with great success. And this was the point where this innovative training technology has been registered as a patent in the United States under the title cognitive simulation. We'll move on to the third generation, and this is where we are working with USA Hockey. A collaboration between USA Hockey and Applied Cognitive Engineering yielded the Hockey IntelliGym. In here, we presented a robust training platform which was adapted to the game of hockey with the help of top coaches. We had coaches from the national teams participating in this research, helping us mapping the skills and the traits needed by top hockey players. This system, on top of the previous versions, this one included detailed feedback mechanism, highly adaptive artificial intelligence algorithms, and also online reporting module, so coaches and players can see progress reports and how they're doing with their training. This version was also much easier to operate. The program was a downloadable one. It could be operated on a PC or a Mac, and it could be launched instantly. So you could just order a license and start working out right away. And now we get to the fourth generation, which we have been working on for the past 2 years, and now it is being presented, I think, for the first time in this level of detail. So researchers now have vast amount of data that they can access and analyze and do all the number crunching and so on and so forth to enable us to fine-tune the program. So as a matter of fact, the IntelliGym Training Server now store the world's largest database of athletes' cognitive activity, which is very important for us in order to know exactly what's the impact of this program. We also have training records of top performing players. You can see here a long list of teams who are engaged with this program. We have some 60 NHL drafted players and over 200 college players. So again, it's a lot of data, a lot of information that we can we relate to in fine-tuning this program and releasing more advanced versions of this program. So what does it have? We have what we call the multidimensional personalization, okay? And that means that each player has a highly adapted training program, okay? Taking into account the strengths and weaknesses of each player. We're looking at the learning curves of each player. We're looking at the skill level of a large, long list of cognitive aspects. So it all can be adapted to each and every player now in a much more comprehensive manner. And the result is a system that is, on one hand, very effective training program. On the other hand, is highly adaptive, which means it's easier for players to do. Would be less likely to frustrate players that are they're harder to get these notions of training, and will not be too easy for guys who are really top-notch players and get really fast with those type of training. So what exactly is IntelliGym? I think that it's as we know, it's a new breed of training systems, but it's maybe easier to start with what the IntelliGym is not. So first of all, it's not a video game, even though it may look like one, and it's not a simulator. It's not a hockey simulation. Research showed that high-fidelity simulation can actually damage the performance of players who are going through this type of training. So the IntelliGym is a cognitive training system that hones into the very basic fundamental skills that underlie hockey players' performance. Okay? And here I think is a very vivid illustration of what the IntelliGym is all about. In order to do this type of research, what we have done, we have mounted cameras on top of the helmets of players. So as you can see here in this illustration, looking from a side view and a top view of a hand of a player in that respect, you can see there is a big gap between what our eyes can cover visually and what our brain can process, which is illustrated here in this yellowish triangle. Okay, this yellow part we call the attention spotlight, which means what you can actually process, which is much narrower than what our eyes can cover. Okay, so just to give you an illustration of what it is like and how does it look like and how do different players respond to different types of information, just imagine here that you're sitting in the sidelines of a hockey game and you're watching a game, and we notice that two different persons, two different individuals sitting in the sidelines can see very, very different game. So just consider a very young player. What he would see, or she, would be most likely just the edge, okay, the top of the stick of the guy in front of him and just the puck. You probably saw the guys, young players that are just going up and down the ice in the same lane, and this is because they are overwhelmed by the information and the events that are happening around them. They cannot process a lot of information. And then you have a more advanced player, and then this guy or this girl here playing would be able to view a more broader view of the guys or the players in front of them. So they will look at the balance, where these guys are leaning to and where they're looking. A more advanced player would be able to see other players as well, and how will they be part of the game, and how should I take them into account. More advanced players, they will be able to view the entire scene. So again, we're looking at the same game, but two different players would see a totally different view and totally different amount of information that they are capable of processing. Now coaches and the top percentile of players, what they will see is actually how the game is about to evolve. Okay? And in a sense, this is what we want players to be capable of by training with the IntelliGym. We want players to be able to see the game pretty much like coaches. Okay? If a player can effectively know how the game is going to look like 3, 4, or 5 seconds down the road and position himself or herself accordingly, then they will become much more effective players. That's our end goal here. And then the question pops up, obviously, so what are you telling us? Can you take any player and make him, or her Wayne Gretzky? And the answer obviously is not. You do have your pool of genes which restrict your game and your abilities. So in the same token, I cannot take any person to the weight room and make him Arnold Schwarzenegger, because you do need to have the right genes to become one. So here in the same sense, we have different types or different profiles of players, each player with a significant and unique pool of genes, but within that pool of genes, there is a long way we can move forward and make significant progress. Okay, so each and every player, just like lifting weights, each and every player who will go through a brain training workout will improve his performance. And this is the actual training environment. And I know that many coaches have seen that already, but just briefly, as I said, it's not a hockey simulation. So as you can see, we use a space battle metaphor. You have two bunkers on both sides of the screen here, and we have spaceships that are moving around, the red guys against the blue guys. The one with the white circle around, the blue spaceship, it is here with number 1 on top. This is the spaceship that I'm controlling, and all the other guys, all the other spaceships are controlled by the artificial intelligence algorithms, making sure that that I have the right challenge that is adapted to what I need to see, with the right decisions to make, the right cognitive challenges, and so on and so forth. At the top of the screen here, you can see those various gauges. Here in this instance, they are measuring my maneuverability, bomb handling, which obviously stands for puck handling, offense and defense and team play. And I'm asked to put with this pentagon shape, I'm asked to put the right emphasis on each of those elements during my training. And along the training session, which I mentioned earlier, a training session takes about half hour. Within that half hour, I have 5 or 6 different scenarios that are constantly changing. As you can see here, just a few examples. Here in the top left, you can see those clouds coming in and out from this space battlefield that are hindering with my view. On the top right, you can see this ammunition or weapons that I'm using. Sometimes those weapons would be short or long, making me to either look at my very near vicinity or look further away, forcing me to take into account more objects that are around in that scenery, and so on and so forth. So there are quite a few different scenarios that keep changing all the time. And as I mentioned earlier, the end goal of all this training obviously is to improve the player's performance on the ice sheet. So what we're encouraging the players, and this is not mandatory, but we encourage players to keep track of their on-ice statistics. So here they can put up their numbers. Every time the IntelliGym is launched, this pop-up screen will present the players with the option to put their numbers in there. We look at the wide range of figures, again, that the players can put in there, or they can just skip that part altogether. You can put in your goals, assists, points, plus, minus, blocked shots, passes completed, giveaways, and so on and so forth. So you can just keep track of all these numbers and see how the IntelliGym impacts your game. And then we have the reports module, which I mentioned earlier. So here you have the timeline of the training of this particular player. And here, each line that you can see here underneath this timeline shows a training session carried out by that particular player. And here in this gauge at the bottom, you can see to what extent each player has been following up the training guidelines. And then you have the performance tab, and here you can see the combined index of hockey sense that I mentioned earlier. And this takes various elements of hockey sense, fundamental skills, and put them into one unified index that shows how the player has been improving throughout this training program. And in that respect, it is important to note that we always compare each player to his or her own baseline. We do not compare players to each other. There is not really a significant advantage to do that. We just want to make sure that each player improves throughout this training. And then we have a lot of data, as I mentioned earlier. I have a separate presentation about the numbers and about the figures, both on the person level and on the team level. But just as a highlight, what we have seen is a 40% increase in point generation within the first season of IntelliGym workout. And on the team level, we have seen the range of 24 to 55% increase in the team's wins ratio compared to the test teams who didn't go through the cognitive training with the IntelliGym. Another very interesting aspect that we have looked into recently was the impact of cognitive training on ice injuries. And this is something which is almost a side effect as much as far as we are concerned, but I think this is also worth mentioning, and I have a couple of slides in that respect as well. So what our researchers found, and this is a well-known and published fact, that the vast majority of injuries happen because of unanticipated hits. And if this is the case, and if the cognitive training in the IntelliGym helps players to have better spatial awareness and better anticipation and better working memory, which means they're less likely to put themselves in a position where they could be hit. So we would expect cognitive training to have an impact on the safety of players or reduce the number of injuries. So we did a study on that. We looked at the numbers of 5 different cohorts with the National Team Development Program, which means the under 17 and the under 18 national teams. And here you can see the summary of more than 850 data points. We looked at all the medical records and saw that after the IntelliGym has been implemented, the on-ice injury rate has dropped significantly, as you can see here. So again, it not only improves the performance of the players on the ice, but smarter players are less likely to be injured, which really shows very clearly here on this chart. The IntelliGym has been reviewed by a group of researchers coming from all those very reputable institutions, MIT and Stanford and Berkeley and so on and so forth. It participated in this Brain Fitness Innovation Award and looking at some 40 different brain fitness utilities and programs, and the IntelliGym won the first prize in this competition. And here I'm getting to the last part of this presentation, some best practices and how can we implement the IntelliGym with our team or with our players. So first of all, the program can be run on both a PC and a Mac. As I mentioned earlier, it does need to have internet connection. In some cases, it will allow offline training for players who are on the road or traveling, but in most cases, an internet connection will be required. In some cases, you have individual training, so players can train at home or the computer lab or study hall. Some teams like their players to have everybody in the same room and do the training session simultaneously, although it is done individually. The training regimen takes 30 minutes per session, and we do not recommend to do more than 1 training session a day. As a matter of fact, the recommended training regimen is to have 48 hours, or more accurately, 2 night sleeps in between every 2 training sessions. So let's say I'm doing the first training session on Monday, the next recommended regimen training session should take place on Wednesday. So I have Monday night and Tuesday night, and then I will be ready mentally to do the next one. The IntelliGym can be used for long periods, just like you training your muscles. So some players, are concentrating put their mental efforts in training just before the season or just before the playoffs, but it can be used throughout the year. And some players would feel somewhat tired after this training. It does take a lot of your brain resources. So we would not recommend doing IntelliGym training before a game or before a practice, or if you're at school before an exam or an important mental endeavor. So just before going to the weight room or before you go to sleep, that would be an ideal time. In many cases, we find that the scheduled training is very is effective, making the players know when they're expected to do this training. And then the impact of this brain training usually seen after 8 to 10 training sessions. So if you do 2 training sessions a week, that would be around 2 months to 2.5 or 6 weeks or so to see initial results on the ice. I mentioned earlier the online reports, so both the players can see, and the staff, the coaching staff, can see the players' progress and how, to what extent they're following up the guidelines, the training guidelines. And just like any training program, the commitment of the players and their consistency with the training are highly important. So here we just list a few examples how we can secure the players' buy-in. It is very important to have the right expectation settings before their training, to tell them, listen guys, this is important training. It's going to help you with your game. It is not a video game, so there's going to be some repetitions in there, and it's going to be challenging. But the more you do this training, the better you get on the ice. Okay, in some teams, we've seen the coaching staff just post the scores, the IntelliGym scores, on a team board, or either scoring the training activity on the boards, which trying to encourage players to do their online training. And here is just an example, again taken from the NTDP, the National Team Development Program. They have their training schedule, they have their practices, their games, and as you can see highlighted here, the IntelliGym training sessions are part of their training schedule. So once the players know when they're expected to do the IntelliGym, they will do that on time, and if not, the coach will be able to see that right away and ask the players to complete their IntelliGym training session. So that's pretty much what I have to share with you this evening. I thank you very much for the time you shared with us. We have answered quite a few questions along this webinar. I see my staff members here marking that they have answered quite a few questions. You can see more information on our website, and if you have questions, I will be happy to address them. Just shoot me an email to danny@intelligym.com. You can also write us, our support staff, at support@intelligym.com would be the guys that will be willing to help you with any questions you may have. So again, thank you very much for the time, and we hope to see you on our website and working out with IntelliGym. Thanks a lot, and have a good night.